welcome to Crypto Disrupted. I'm your host, Trent Lipinski. I'm here with Eijah, otherwise known as Eric Anderson. He's a hacker, founder, and he's working on a new project called Promether. Hey, Eijah, how's it going? What are you working on?
Hey, Trent. Thanks for having me. So as you've already mentioned, I'm the CEO and founder of a brand new company that we just created called Promether. And it's a rather unique company. It's kind of halfway in the software development space, halfway in the hacking space, and halfway in the blockchain ICO space. So I know that makes two halves. Don't worry about the math here, guys. The rules of math and physics are not going to apply for the next hour. But it's the convergence of basically the last few years of my life, having a better understanding that what the world needs right now is we need reusable framework for guaranteeing that our anonymity and our privacy and our security is protected against governments and companies and hackers. So it's really boils down to that. And why blockchains? Why the blockchain space? Well, it doesn't have to be the blockchain space, but blockchains are the perfect example of a modern decentralized network. And so as we know, decentralized networks are really, really tough to implement and really tough to implement right. Why are they tough? Well, because they don't rely on centralization and authority. And once you remove that from the equation, you have these independent autonomous nodes that are all responsible for both the client and the server stuff, which is very, very difficult. It's much more difficult to write a decentralized network than a traditional centralized network like Facebook or Dropbox or Google. And every decentralized network, when you break it apart, has the same needs. And that's the niche where Promether really aims to fit in. Every decentralized network needs networking. So your nodes need to talk to each other. It needs security code. Your nodes need to send encrypted messages to each other. And it needs the possibility of anonymity. And so what I call this is at the core of Promether, it's really built on a programmatic layer I call the NSA, networking, security, and anonymity. Because I feel like it's time we steal that acronym back from those government fuckers, basically. So you said I could swear. I think it's appropriate when describing government rogue agencies that have gone beyond their purview and gone beyond the powers that we gave them as citizens. So anyway, that's what we're doing. We're building software that allows people to be set free, and we're trying to protect comms and all types of technologies, specifically blockchain and decentralized apps.
Yeah. And this is ultimately, you're coming at it from almost from like a protocol and infrastructure layer, is we've got to solve these initial infrastructure problems to create the anonymity that people need to be anonymous online and to be able to participate in these networks and these blockchain applications and future decentralized applications, and not necessarily have to give all their data up to major corporations or governments.
Exactly. Now, most people don't realize the internet, when it was founded, in fact, even today, the internet is decentralized. It's totally decentralized. But over time, we created these centralized applications on top of the internet. Why? Because they're easier to scale. They're easier to control. They're easier to control the authentication and authorization, and they're just easier to build out. And it's easier to write apps when your nodes call into a server infrastructure. It's easier to load balance and make your nodes redundant and archive data and be compliant with HIPAA and PCI and SOX and all these other government mandates. It's so much easier. And so naturally, companies have gravitated toward a centralized architecture. But most people are starting to forget the internet was always designed to be decentralized. It's just harder to write those apps. And so Promether aims to kind of fix the problem by not having applications and decentralized networks like Ethereum and Holo to worry about that. Because if programmers have to worry about security or worry about anonymity or privacy, they're never going to get to the point where users' data can be protected.
Yeah.
I have this saying that I coined. It was 5 years ago now at my first speaking engagement at DEF CON back in DEF CON 22. And I told the audience of about a little more than 2,000 people in the audience that day. And I said, inadequacy breeds innovation. And I said, think about this. Inadequacy breeds innovation. So the way that you know that a technology has become inadequate over time, usually because it hasn't evolved and adapted over time is that innovative solutions are strapped on top of it and layered on top of it. You think of things like the Lightning Network for Bitcoin, or you think of VPNs, or you think of Tor. VPNs are a perfect example of inadequacy that had to find an innovative solution. Why do people use VPNs? Well, a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them use VPNs so that they can use BitTorrent. Well, why do they do that? Because they want their IP hidden. Well, why do they want their IP hidden? Because ISPs and draconian companies are sending them not nasty letters and nasty emails telling them they're going to shut off their internet. So we now have a layer of abstraction we call VPN service providers to get over the inadequacy of peer-to-peer networks. Same thing with the Lightning Network for Bitcoin. Why do we have the Lightning Network? Because people want cheaper and faster transactions and more scalability. Well, why do they want that? Because Bitcoin is inadequate at that. Well, why is Bitcoin inadequate at that? Because it's a shitty data structure and it's a shitty architecture decision to use a Merkle tree that is, totally locked globally. Well, so when you really look at quote unquote innovative solutions, they're innovative. VPNs and Tor are innovative. Lightning Network is innovative, but they're innovative because the underlying technology is really poorly designed, or at worst, just shit. So when you pull back the camera, like let's pull back there. So we're pulling back there. So you can actually see my brand new Prometheus shirt now. So that was that was not planned or staged that way. But when you pull back and you look at the entire problem space, you realize that the people are being very creative. We're creating very pretty and creative band-aids, and we're not actually solving the underlying problem, which is, we're cut, our arms broken. And so what we're trying to do with Prometheus, what we're trying to achieve with Prometheus is, instead of just layering innovation on top of inadequacy, let's build an infrastructure that solves the real problem and makes it seamless for apps, decentralized networks, and any blockchains and anybody to simply benefit from that without having to worry about integration details. So we provide two APIs. One's a programmatic API, which is traditional write the code, and another one is a service-based API, which is more of like a networking layer. It just works. And we try to be as flexible and convenient as possible to these applications, because if it's not convenient, modern day developers are not going to use it. I'm a hacker and a programmer. I'm kind of like the worst of both worlds. I'm both. So I'm an engineer with multiple degrees, and I'm a hacker who probably could have been fined a lot of money and or served jail time. Fingers crossed, statute of limitations is over. But I'm a little bit of both. And the reality is, as programmers and hackers, the fastest distance between 2 points is a straight line. I'm not going to do any additional work that I don't have to do. And a lot of times I say programmers and hackers are lazy. And I mean that with a lot of love. We're lazy because if I solve this problem fast now, I can spend more time with my girlfriend or my boyfriend or with family or friends or just sleeping in. And so we're lazy because we know there's a fast way of accomplishing the problem, and we don't want to waste any of life's precious moments. We'd rather be playing a game like GTA5, which I spent 5 years working on with Rockstar Games. So
yeah, I wanted to get a little bit into that. So let's get into who you are and why you have tasked yourself with solving these problems.
Okay.
Can you talk a little bit about your background? I know you were the hacker behind the Blu-ray hack. You worked on Grand Theft Auto 5. What is some of the other stuff that you've worked on over the years?
Well, I have a fascinating John Deere mug, and in case anybody's wondering, this is my coffee mug of choice every day. And the reason why I'm telling you about this, like, why the hell is he telling us about a stupid John Deere mug? I don't have a John Deere tractor. I don't even like John Deere. The reason I have this beautiful John Deere mug, this is the only thing that I kept from my time in Alabama, which is where I met John McAfee. I met John McAfee at the Roundhouse, which was an incubator in a small little town called Opelika. And it's spelled just as terribly as it sounds, by the way, Opelika, Alabama. And I stole this mug from the house that I was renting for 7 months. I figured I had it, they had it coming. They were nice, but I'll send them $5 if they ever ask for it one day. But so I keep this mug here as a reminder every day that, I spent time with the quote unquote great John McAfee, and I won. I am stronger and greater now than I ever was before I met John. I don't need John. And I told John many, many times I don't need him. He hated that. He hated that because I'm powerful, because I am unique, because I work my ass off, because I'm a smart person, not because of who I know. So this is a constant reminder from me that it's not the people we socialize with, or the people that, we take selfies with, or any smart or wealthy people in life that makes us great or makes us successful. It's because of us. And it's because every morning when we wake up, we don't hit snooze. It's because we bust our asses. So if you are great in life and you are successful, it's because of you, not because of anybody, and sure as hell not for John McAfee, who's antiquated, outdated, and on far too many drugs to be effective in life. And so this is that.
He was almost recently assassinated too, so that was interesting.
At least in his own mind. Which, you know what? At the end of the day, if we're all in a simulation anyway, what's the difference from imagining reality and living reality, right? So if I had a hat on, I would tip my hat to you, Mr. John McAfee. You're a crazy son of a bitch. But you were also a learning lesson for me that I don't need anybody else to be successful. I need to follow my heart. I follow my dreams. And so Grand Theft Auto, Grand Theft Auto, Blu-ray hacks. Rockstar Games is an amazing company, and I still miss them even today. Being a lead programmer for GTA5 and for Red Dead Redemption 2 and Max Payne 3, and before that with Activision, with a variety of Guitar Heroes, was huge. I've always wanted to be a game programmer, always. I thought that game programming was the pinnacle of programming. Both hacking and game programming, I still believe, are the top. If you can be a hacker or you can be a game programmer, I think you pretty much have achieved what you want to achieve in software engineering. And it was a lot of fun. Solving problems. I would not be able to make Prometheus had it not been for my 5 years at Rockstar Games. And so I owe a lot of who I am to Rockstar Games. I wouldn't have been able to work for Rockstar Games had I not proven myself at Activision. And I wouldn't have been able to be at Activision had I not proven myself as the security expert for American Express, where I was in charge of their online, their internet and intranet security portfolio. But I wouldn't have been able to do that had I not gotten degrees, had I not studied computer science, and had I not tinkered at home in the evenings and on the weekends trying to break Blu-ray and reverse engineer algorithms. So once again, it goes back to how we choose to spend our free time. It has been a great journey for me. I'm very humbled to have been around some of the great developers that I met at Rockstar and all the other places. But it goes back to how we choose to spend our free time. We have a finite number of days that are unwritten for each one of us. And life is very, very quickly moving. And life is over before we realize it. When we're in our early 20s and late teens, we think time stands still. And in a lot of ways, it does. But once we get into our 20s and then our 30s, I mean, you mentioned the other day, Trent, that I think it was on your website about it was easier in your 20s now that you're in your 30s, and that's something we each have to face. But the most important thing is failure, not a problem. I'll take failure all day long because you know what? I can pivot. I can get back up. I can learn from it. But regret has no postmortem value. All regret does is eat you alive for every single day that you remain on this planet. I'd rather fail 1,000 times over than regret one thing. And so really it's about being who you want to be, taking the risks that you want and dealing
I have a counter argument too, is success kind of sucks sometimes. From when I ran my last startup, I had 4.9 million downloads of my software. And it was I had to wake up every morning and be responsible for that. There were 10, 12, 15 million websites running my software. So if something went wrong, that was my problem and I had to fix it. So I'm sure you probably went through a similar experience with GTA and all the games and everything that you worked on where there's a level of responsibility that you take when you're successful. and
Yeah.
you're responsible for, your team, for your software, for your security. You're responsible for that, and you're the person that if it breaks, you have to fix it.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
there's a beautiful part of that where you get to solve real problems, and there's real challenges, and there's real, there's an element to that that's just as authentic as you can get. At the same time, there's 16-hour work days. There's not being able to solve that problem. You think about it for 3 days straight, and then the moment you finally go take a shower, or you're finally doing something else, all of a sudden it just, oh, that's the solution. So it's those little moments, and it's those spaces in between, which you have to learn how to allow yourself to have those, so that you're not trying to force results. Because when you try to force things, man, like that's like that's the worst problems to have, when you're trying to force something that isn't meant to be. Because you have to go with the flow just as much as you have to be able to craft and like manifest and create your own desired, destination. And you're right. Failure ultimately is the most important thing possibly in life, because it teaches you everything that you need to learn. And it just, like, the education system, I'm a high school, college dropout. Like, I couldn't deal with it, because like getting an F on something, it was like, okay, cool. I figured out, like, hey, that's not how that works. So for me, it was like this amazing learning experience, but they actually punish you for failing in the education system. And it's like, why would you do that? Like, that's where you should be learning. Like, if you're just constantly repeating something from someone else and you're getting A's and you're getting rewarded for that, like, cool, you're a parrot. Like, so it's just, but yeah, anyways, I fully agree with, what you've been talking about, what you've experienced. I've got many parallels, and I've experienced the same thing in my life. And I see now too why you're going and working on Prometheus and the project you're working on as well. So can you kind of like talk about, what experiences you had with GTA and some of your past that, has enlightened you as to what we need to do on the infrastructure side to fix our networks?
Yeah. Well, it was interesting because for GTA5, I was the programmer who, I use the term rewrite very softly here, but I rewrote all the networking layer code for online, GTA5 online. And, not all of it was rewritten, but, I rewrote a really good chunk of it. I definitely optimized it. I streamlined it a bit. So when I did, and this was about 5 years ago now, I dabbled in networking code for many, many years. I never wanted to be a security engineer or a network engineer. I never, ever, and I can't state that enough. I never wanted to be a fucking networking or security or crypto engineer, ever. But now I am exactly that. And, sometimes life chooses you. You don't choose life. But for me, being at Rockstar is excellence. And now keep in mind, I turned down the severance package when I left Rockstar. We left amicably. They were not very happy, and rightfully so, on the Forbes article that was written about me and John McAfee. Rockstar likes to keep things on the down low. They like to keep everything kind of low key. And I understand, because publicity is tough enough to manage when it comes from your own team, let alone from employees and other people that just have side projects. So when that Forbes article came out, I don't know when it was now, 5 years ago or so, and John McAfee, who is known for being anything but sane, by the way, John, I'll party with him any day. He's an amazing guy. At parties, he's great. Business partner, coming in hopped up on coke, not the best business partner. You can't have strategic planning sessions when he's so high on coke he doesn't even know who you are. So, but when that article came out, I understood the potential controversy, and I understand why Rockstar didn't want it. But Rockstar is a company about excellence. To this day I love Rockstar. When I left, they didn't lock me out. They didn't revoke my access. They didn't bring me a box. They let me stay there for a month after that Forbes announcement while I was figuring out the right time to leave. And then I chose the day I wanted to leave because obviously I couldn't do both Demon Saw and Red Dead 2 at that time. Demon Saw was a full-time job. Rockstar was 50 to 60 hours a week at that point, and that was just normal working hours. I couldn't maintain 80 to 100-hour work weeks, and my heart was in Demon Saw. My heart was being an entrepreneur, and they understood it. So they asked me, when do you want to leave? And then I chose a day a week or two in advance, and they offered me a big severance package that I turned down. I just didn't feel it was right to take their money. Plus, there's a lot of legal documents you got to sign, and you just never know. But I just told them, and then on the last day there, I had full computer access. I had access to all the code. They didn't lock me out. They trusted me. I trusted them. The studio head came up to me late afternoon on that last day and said, I need to take your fob, but you leave when you're ready. You leave when you're ready. And I had full access to all the code. That shows you the type of relationship I had with Rockstar. Rockstar is the best. They are the greatest, in my opinion, game studio ever. And they will continue to be the best for one reason and one reason alone. It's because they're all about excellence. They're about hiring the best people. They're about not releasing a product until it's ready, even if the shareholders aren't happy. And in this day and age, when you have the crapware that Ubisoft and EA and Activision keep shoveling down our throats, you're hard pressed to find a game studio. Now, Rockstar's not perfect. We worked a hell of a lot of hours. When I was making Max Payne 3, I was working 80 to 100-hour weeks, and we couldn't take even one day off for over 2 months. 80 to 100. I mean, I had so many weeks where I worked 100 hours a week. And for certain people that are doing the math, or too lazy to doing the math, or the math doesn't coincide with the big joint they're smoking right now, or whatever your reason, that is 14 and a half hours a day, 7 days a week.
Yeah.
14 and a half in the office, not to mention travel time to and from, and sleep. So if you factor in, if you say I'm going to sleep 8 hours a day, and I'm going to drive a half an hour each way to work, you basically have 24 hours a day right there. So you don't even have time to shower. But Rockstar for me was really a 5-year boot camp about how to get the most out of me as an engineer and how to motivate my team. Sorry if you hear a lot of weird noises in the background. It's just the oncoming thunderstorm that hopefully will not like toss the house around like the Wizard of Oz. But Rockstar taught me how you go from greatness as an engineer to legendary status. And here's the secret: sacrifice. That's all it is, sacrifice. You have to be willing to sacrifice everything else in your life and focus on what you want to be legendary at. Whether this is being a politician or being a CEO or being involved in charity efforts or building an empire or building a game, you have to, at the end of the day, if you want to be great, you've got to sacrifice so much of yourself and so much of your relationships. And they taught me that you can work 80 to 100 hours a week and create an amazing game. Now, most of the time we didn't work that much, and I want to be fair to Rockstar. I don't want anybody to think Rockstar is enslaving people. No, they're not. They're not. Our average work week was probably about 50, 55 hours a week. So you figure, 10 hours, at least 10 hours in the office a day, minus lunch.
Product launches, you had to ramp up. You had, there were probably phases where you had to work more.
Absolutely. There were many times, like at the end of GTA5, where GTA5 was actually an easy crunch, and a crunch is usually the last 6 months of a game. When everybody, all hands on deck, you put your life on hold. You hope your wife doesn't divorce you. And I joke about this, but there are a lot of people who lost their relationships out of crunch. And once again, that is not a critique on Rockstar. That's a critique on the entire industry of crunching. And Microsoft crunches, Google crunch, everybody crunches in the tech industry. Startups crunch. I know you've had your own companies. You've probably asked your people, you're not leaving the office till this is done. You probably have people sleep in the office. You do what you do to be successful.
I
Because
ran distributed teams, but yeah,
okay, all right.
they didn't
So they
sleep
could
too much.
so they could walk down the hallway and sleep, but still you're like
I didn't sleep either. I mean, I was
okay,
managing people in India, the UK, all over the world. So, I'd work with my US team during daylight, and then I take like maybe I don't know, like a 30-minute hour break, go get something to eat. And then as soon as my US team like signed off for the night, I would start working with my European and, rest of the team. So then I was up till 3, 4 in the morning working with them. Then I'd go to sleep, wake up, work with my US team, and start the whole process all over again
yeah.
7 days a week.
Well, and so Rockstar was, except for owning my own company right now, Rockstar was the greatest job I ever had by far. I love that company. I am loyal to that company. I miss them every day. It's bittersweet because Rockstar taught me how to be the man and the engineer and the entrepreneur that I needed to be in my current position.
Mm-hmm.
I could not have done this without them. That's the catch-22. That's the irony, is without them, I would never have left them because I didn't have the skill sets to be successful on my own until they honed them. It really was trial by fire. It was taking me as a good engineer and making me legendary. And that's all about them and their process and their excellence. They make the greatest games because they have the greatest people sacrificing the greatest amount of their lives to make the company and the product successful. So when people bitch about paying $60 for a video game, I want to tell them to go fuck off and stop complaining. But it is a lot of money compared to a gallon of milk. And, expensive is relative based on our own, our economic model that we have in life, our current economic model. But for the amount of work that goes into a game like that, people easily waste more than $60 on shitty lattes and tipping the baristas way too much for simply, pouring a couple of shots of espresso. Hopefully I won't get any hate mail from baristas, but, compared to 5 years of sacrifice to make a game like GTA5, $60 is not a lot of money. I waste more than $60 a month, probably on stupid stuff like, I don't know, strawberry jam and, buying a package of donuts when I don't need the donuts and stuff like that.
Well, in your world building, I mean, that's literally when you're creating a video game and you're creating something like Grand Theft Auto 5, like you are literally creating a new world that didn't exist before, that has different laws of physics and reality within it, that you're literally creating a new set of physics. I know you were on the networking side and whatnot, but like, I mean, there's a physics engine in all of these video games. Like there is some hardcore math and programming and science that goes into these things to be able to manipulate and create that whole world that gets created. And then to top it off, you have to then actually then apply storytelling that is excellent. It has to be, or as you've been saying, legendary. Like, you have to be a legendary storyteller on top of all the technology. So not only do you have to create a world, do you not only have to create a new model of physics, not only do you have to make sure that from a network security layer that it's secure, that people can play online and all of those other technical functionalities, but then you have to tell an amazing story on top of it, which is equally as difficult and just as challenging as everything else. So it's the amount of work and engineering that goes into any game. I mean, it's insane. And I'm looking at like even games like Fortnite now, where you can see like if you have any engineering background and you understand how things work, you can see where they cut corners to be able to get to where they're at. Because 100 people playing on a single map is not an easy thing to accomplish. No. And they had to sacrifice features and functionality and graphics and storytelling to be able to do that. They've been massively successful, like in their own right, but from an engineering standpoint, they've had their own set of challenges, and it's not quite the same as like a Grand Theft Auto where you've got that perfect meshing of storytelling and the technical and the security and that immersive online experience.
Absolutely. And most people don't realize when I left about 3 years ago, Rockstar, they had a little under 1,000 people spread across, I think, 6, 7 different studios around the world. Now, that's a little bit less. I think they had 950 something people. That is about 1,000 people making, not only supporting the existing games, so GTA 5 on all 5 platforms, but working on Red Dead Redemption 2, which is about to launch this fall. And there is a secret team working on the next game that hasn't been launched yet that I won't talk about. That I'm sure anybody with an IQ over 70 could probably venture a guess. But you're talking about 1,000 people split across all those games. And artists, I mean, a variety of artists, designers, programmers, managers, executive team, marketing, security. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. You are a self-contained ecosystem doing it all. When people ask me, how would you describe your job at Rockstar? How would you describe your job at Prometheus? Or how would you describe your job as the founder of Demon Saw or whatever? I would say my job, I've got one task. I've got one task. And if I accomplish this, everything else will fit together and will fall into place. I have to accomplish the impossible. And that's it. I've just got to accomplish the impossible. With Rockstar Games, my job was for GTA 5 on 360, Xbox 360 and PS3, I had to fit that entire game inside of 512 megs of memory. That's all the memory I had for all of GTA 5. And I didn't even have that much because the operating system and the executable took up about 80 megs or so. So I only had about 380, 90, maybe 400 megs of usable memory to fit all of GTA. So if you think about it, when you buy a new computer today, if you get a Walmart crappy computer, it still has 4 gigs of memory. If you get a computer that only has 4 gigs today, it's considered crappy. Yeah. So the basic middle of the road laptops will have 8 gigs. 8 gigs, that's 16 times more memory than what GTA 5 runs in on a 360 and a PS3. Think about that.
I've got 40 in this iMac that I right.
Right. So when you think about like an immersive world that literally is going to change, GTA 5 probably changed the entire generation over the last 5 years. The Generation Y or post-millennials or whatever they're called now. Now, although you're supposed to be 17 to play that game, let's face it, most players probably are not adults, which whatever, but an entire generation of people will judge all future games based on the nostalgic feeling they get and the nostalgic memories surrounding GTA 5, all running in about 400 megs of memory. My job, I was the sole engineer in the company. It was up to me to make sure the game didn't crash due to out of memory. Everything went through my memory. And it worked. It was a lot of fun. But yeah, accomplishing the impossible is really, I think, the only greatest challenge left in the world. Whether that means putting a man on Mars, whether that means colonizing other worlds, whether that means curing cancer, whether it means, peace treaties between Israel and Iran or the Middle East, whatever that is, it's all really about, we can't do it. It's impossible. Well, it's only impossible because you've already decided in your mind that you can't do it. Mm-hmm. And what I try to tell people is nothing is impossible. I'll give you an example. Most people don't realize that it is relatively easy to write code that circumvents multi-million-dollar security systems. Multi-million-dollar. In the span of less than 2 weeks, I went from 0 to hero when I cracked Blu-ray. I had no experience with the Blu-ray spec 13 days before I released the case. Now, it was one hack. There needs to be more, but it shows you that all it takes is a little bit of code. With Demon Saw and now Prometheus, Demon Saw is a great example. That was a project that I partnered with John McAfee on. It breaks through the Great Firewall of China. It just slices through the Great Firewall of China. I have my way with all of China on a whim because I can. And could they stop it? Well, if they actually were smart enough to look into it, they could probably establish some firewall rules and stuff. But I would spend 2 more hours and slice through what they just did. So most people don't realize is the impossible doesn't exist. The impossible only exists here as an impediment and, you know, a border which we set up in our own minds. We set our own impasse up in our own minds. You know, I was watching a show last night called Origins on Netflix about, antivirus or about, you know, setting up like development of penicillin and antibiotics and stuff. And we just randomly stumbled on that. You know, Fleming wasn't the first one to create penicillin, but we just randomly stumbled on, let's throw some mold in here in a petri dish and see what happens. What great achievements and accomplishments have we not stumbled upon yet? Yep. And so with Prometheor, what I've set the company out to do is say, we can bypass any sort of anti-privacy that governments and companies put in place. We can write code that guarantees anonymity for all. Old apps like email and FTP, new apps like Telegram and blockchains. We can write code that not only makes our messages totally untraceable and secure, but it makes them hide in plain sight. This is not crazy talk. This is not an impossibility. This exists today. It's just a matter of ones and zeros. Now, the reason why we don't have great privacy software right now is because companies are motivated by money. They're financially motivated to make more money, and there's no money to be made in privacy. There's no money to be made in security and protecting user information. Most people will hear that and they'll either disagree or not believe I just said that. Companies have not delivered true privacy solutions. No, it's not Signal. No, it's not Telegram. Those are anti-privacy. No, it's not Google or Facebook. They haven't delivered that because they don't give a damn about us. They only care about us in so much as they can make money off of our data. We are not even numbers to them. We are less than numbers. At least if I enlist in the military, I'm a number. You know, at least I have a dog tag that has this is my number, damn it. Nobody else has it. This is my primary key.
We're just metadata. We're literally, that's all it is to them. They don't even care.
No.
There's no reason to associate it with a person because they're just trying to analyze everything because they just want to sell out any data they can get.
Right. And what's funny is this proves itself out. Our theory self-proves itself out by their attempt to justify their privacy evasive techniques by saying, we're going to remove all personally identifiable information from that, or PII. The fact that they're willing to say, I can take this metadata, I can abstract anything that's related to you, proves our point that we are nothing more than metadata. Because if we were valuable to them as individuals, they wouldn't even be able to separate our identity from our metadata. And so it's kind of, for them, it's a catch-22. It's like, to them, all we are is data that makes them money. Now, the truth to this matter is, okay, so are we never going to have great privacy solutions? Are we never going to have security solutions that put the end user and the individual first? Not with the current corporate and financial structure, because they will make far more money abusing us than saving us. And back to my original thought is, if you're waiting for Superman to fly in and save you, you're going to be waiting a long, long time, because the only Superman that exists is you if you choose to strap that cape on. There is no other savior in your life but yourself if you choose to step up. So how do we do it? How do we create privacy solutions and security and anonymity solutions if companies can't make it for us? We have to have emergent modern companies that are financially incentivized to create these user-centric, privacy-focused solutions. Well, I thought you just said, Eijah, that companies will make more money not doing that. Old companies, legacy, antiquated, the companies of 5, 10 plus years ago. There is a new model right now called crowdfunding. It's been around for a long time. I don't want your readers to be like, oh my God, did Eijah just realize crowdfunding exists? Okay, it's been here for over a decade, but crowdfunding is a way of taking a company with a founder like myself, who's motivated by good intentions and motivated for the right reasons, like protecting privacy and fucking over governments and companies. And it allows the crowd who shares my ideals and shares my vision and passion to allow me to have enough funds to hire the right people to build out these solutions without being tied to the hip to traditional investors that are going to demand shortcuts or going to demand compromise. And it allows me to raise the money and maintain my morality in the process while building out amazing, great, legendary technology. That's the only way we will get this tech, is if we ask the people who need it and want it to be part of the machine and be part of the process that makes it a reality. We can't rely on publicly traded companies or venture capitalists and angel investors to make this happen, because at the end of the day, all they care about is padding their pockets. And let's be honest, there's nothing wrong with that. We live in a capitalistic society. It's not wrong that people are capitalistic. And we can't blame people for wanting to be comfortable and protect their families and have a good life. What we can do is we can blame ourselves for not being part of a crowd-funded effort to protect all of us. You know, the average citizen, the people who don't have millions in their accounts, the people who are just fighting to make it week by week. Crowdfunding is the future of privacy. And the blockchain has done this in a remarkable and powerful way through ICOs. So the greatest contribution that the blockchain has ever made has nothing to do with preventing the double spend problem or the Byzantine generals problem. I mean, yeah, if you want to read about those, okay, that's fascinating. Put your geek hat on. Cool. All right, technically interesting. Great problem. Good job, researchers, you know, good or TAs and RAs. Good job solving that one. The greatest contribution that the blockchain has made is that it incentivizes people, average people like you and I, to turn on their computers and leave them on. You know, folding at home, SETI at home, all of these failed.
Ethereum.
Yeah, Ethereum. You know, why have all of these old decentralized networks, Freenet, why have RetroShare, why have they failed? They failed because good intentions only go so far. And there's this, what I call the growth cost problem. So the good intentions, the well-meaning intentions of the founders of the core group of individuals that support a new decentralized network can only expand so far before the tension on the outer circle pulls back. It's kind of like an expanding universe model. Is gravity is too strong. You can't grow the network beyond the good intentions of the founders. And so what happens is you now get in a situation where you've got a great idea, a great application, a great group of people, but it only goes so far. I'll give you an example. DemonSoft, the decentralized app that I wrote, is a perfect example of this. So how do you get people to donate their capacity, their network resources, their computers? You have to appeal to that core element of capitalism, that core element of greed, that self-sustaining nature of every individual. You've got to pay them. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. There's nothing wrong with paying people. But we have to admit that. We have to admit that we are selfish people, and that's okay. And so I think the blockchain has reaffirmed in all of us that we can find a balance between greed and between altruism. And that balance can be enforced and by the people who share a common goal, and that is of protecting their own metadata, privacy, security, anonymity. And when the people rise up, there's a shift in government and there's a shift in power, and real change happens. So governments and companies should be very, very worried of technology like Prometheus, because it is a grassroots effort built by very, very elite programmers and technologists that believe in something greater than making money. But it takes money to make great tech. And so that's where the circle comes around. And now we're at the point where if the crowd can fund it, if like-minded people can fund an initiative, and the morality's there, the good intentions are there, and it's backed by strong technical individuals who achieve and who have proven, like myself, you can get great, disruptive, subversive, emerging modern technology that can change everything. And that's what we're building right now with Prometheus.
Wow. I mean that. Ultimately, you're encompassing, I think, the total vision of what blockchain can be, and you're approaching it from that infrastructure layer, like I mentioned, of solving these networking problems for creating these decentralized networks, and doing so in a way that allows people to be anonymous, because there is value in that. There is value in maintaining your privacy online. And unfortunately, the younger generation has never even really experienced that. I was literally at a tech event where I had a 17-year-old come up to me and ask me what the internet was like before algorithms, because their entire life, they've been force-fed information by an AI, by an algorithm, by someone else telling them what to look at, what to do, what to feel, how to feel it, what to experience in life. Their entire life has been curated for them, and they've never gotten to just go somewhere online and decide, oh, here's what I want to do today. And actually feel and experience and actually see what's available and actually choose. The ability to choose has been taken away from an entire generation of internet users. And they know nothing else. So ultimately, by creating this new technology and by creating new solutions that are going to lead to another generation of decentralized applications, like the decentralized applications you've worked on in the past, and once you get that into the hands of people that have a good user interface, that have the same functionality and benefits of centralized applications, but in a truly decentralized network with their privacy protected, it's going to be a completely new world. There will be cultural shock from being able to experience an app that isn't data mining them, that isn't selling their information, that isn't force feeding information to them and trying to manipulate or distract them. I always joke when people ask me, like, how do you get funding in Silicon Valley? I tell them, well, if you're working on something that's surveillance, you'll possibly get funded. If you're working on something that does data mining, you're probably going to get funded. And if you're working on something that distracts the masses, you're probably going to get funded. And if you're working on something that launders money, you're definitely going to get funded. So if you're not working in those four use cases, you're not going to get venture capital money, because it ultimately comes down to distracting people, laundering money, and creating mechanisms to surveil and data mine the public.
Yeah. Well, you hit it exactly on the head. You talked about convenience. This is my 5th year in a row speaking at DEF CON, which for those of your listeners who don't know, DEF CON, it's the #1 hacker convention in the world. And this year is DEF CON 26. So it's been around for a long time, and a great group of hackers and programmers and people that attend it every year. But back in DEF CON 22, my first year speaking, I talked about what I referred to at the time as the lie of convenience. Now, I didn't realize I was being so prophetic back then, because your first talk tends to be your greatest talk in terms of history. When history reviews all my DEF CON talks and all of my podcasts and stuff, they all go back to this very first talk that was atrocious. I was nervous on the stage. There was over 2,000 people. It was my first time even going to DEF CON, let alone speaking at DEF CON. I was freaking out. Maybe I didn't appear to be, but I was freaking out. And I said something that was so prophetic and so before its time that now people just understand it's a reality, but it's the lie of convenience. And what you talked about is the reason why people are using the cloud and Dropbox and Facebook and Instagram and all these platforms, Telegram and others, is because it's convenient. But what people don't realize, and what even developers don't truly realize, is that you don't need centralization and surveillance and logging and authoritative draconian kind of oversight of applications and companies to get the convenience. You can have as much, if not more, convenience by a truly decentralized, privacy-centric, and user-friendly architecture. But it's harder to build that out. It's harder to build a decentralized application out that is as convenient as it is to just slap some code together and say, look, I made Telegram. Look, I made Dropbox. You know, I could build a Dropbox replacement in probably 2 months, full from zero to hero in 2 months. That's easy. Slap up some servers, you're done. Yeah, you solve a couple of synchronization, versioning problems, whatever. But you don't have to worry about node-to-node discovery and all that. And how do you do decentralized PKI? Well, Dropbox isn't really even encrypted. So, but most people don't realize we have been sold by companies and governments this lie of convenience that we need them for these convenient modern apps, that we can't have our current state of application ecosystem of convenience without their help. They've sold us this lie because if we find out the truth, if we take the red pill as opposed to the blue pill, and we wake up, we're going to realize that we don't need them anymore. Facebook, Google, Dropbox, all these companies, they are not needed. They think of them as like as kind of like the styrofoam or the paper cup that you get your latte in. After you're done, you discard them. So these companies are discardable, but they don't want us to know that yet. When we find that out,
code.
Exactly. When we create applications like Contact, which is the first DApp, the first application that will be running on Prometheus, we'll have some early alpha screenshots we'll be releasing at DEF CON this week. When in fact it'll happen in a couple of days. When people see these screenshots, and they'll say, you know what? This looks like an experience I would get in Signal or Telegram or Skype or WhatsApp or Snapchat. And they'll be like, wait, and you're saying this doesn't steal my data? This doesn't violate my privacy? This doesn't hand over all of my metadata and chat logs to governments? Well, what's the difference? And so they're going to start, that little light's going to come on, and they're going to be like, maybe what Eijah's saying isn't crazy. Maybe he's based in reality, and maybe it's based in fact, and maybe the future of the world is what I've been terming the decentralized cloud. So where is technology going in the next 5 to 10 years? I'll tell you exactly where it's going. Facebook, Google, Dropbox, Telegram, they're all going extinct. They're all going away because the centralized model is going to appear to the next generation like Atari 2600s appear to this generation. They're nostalgic and cute, and we had to start from somewhere.
They're old.
They're old. They're old. Now I have one upstairs. That was my original one, and it's great. Plug it in, it works, but it's not modern. I don't use it. I don't. It's not as cool as GTA5. People are going to view these antiquated centralized companies just like that. And these companies are going to lose tremendous amount of market share and value because they are incapable of evolving and adapting to the new future. The new future is based first on privacy and decentralizing our user data with giving us full authority and control over that data, even control to end it if we want. Delete your entire online identity with the click of a button. That's the type of control that we're giving and we're providing in Prometheus. They are not able to even get to that state because their entire model is based on them being part of the equation. Without control, they have no need to collect data, and without that data, they have no revenue model. It's going to be
this is already happening. I mean, Facebook just lost almost 24% of its value in a single 24-hour after trading period. So the public has already said, hey, we're not even going to invest in this because the public has realized they've woken up with the Cambridge Analytica situation, and that they saw what happened with the 2016 election. They've realized that Facebook doesn't even have the keys to their own car. It's a Buick traveling down the freeway and no one's behind the wheel. It's to the point where they've got a legacy system that they themselves don't even really know how it works because they built capitalism so deeply into it to the point where it doesn't create value even for them anymore. it's to the point now where it's like the only solution they had on their earnings call was, well, how are you going to make more money now that no one wants to use your platform? And their solution was, we're going to put more ads in our messaging app because people still use the messaging app. That was their answer. Like,
yeah, which is here's the it's over. Here's the funny thing is when people see Contact, which by the way will officially be released for public consumption in Q4 of this year. So people are wondering, well, when's it going to be available? We're going to have a limited beta test before that, probably in Q3, but it's officially going to be available, and it's going to be free to download and free to use. You know, there's no ads, there's no data collection. It's powered by Prometheus, so it validates the technology of Prometheus, and it's the first app that will run on the Prometheus network that we're ICOing, you know, in the coming months as well. But when they see this and they see what's possible, there's going to be no need. Imagine you and I, so, you know, you're San Francisco kind of Bay Area, somewhere around there. So let's say I'm in town and I'm like, you know what? Beautiful San Francisco, city by the bay, beautiful, wonderful people. I'm just going to come in for whatever, a conference or whatever. Hey, Trent, do you want to grab a latte? Okay, cool. Let's go grab a latte and pay way too much for water and caffeine. Great. So we meet up. I have my phone. You have my phone. We both load Contact, and we don't say a word. I go over, I scan a QR code that Contact displays, and now we are in a secure, fully encrypted peer-to-peer chat that is not logged, is not surveilled, and is not even noticed on the networks of telecoms and ISPs. Nobody knows we're chatting. Nobody can decrypt the payload. We are hiding in complete plain sight, and I simply scanned a QR code or bumped your phone with NFC, and we sit there and drink our coffee. Maybe we don't say a word. Maybe we drink our coffee and we chat. I don't know what we're saying. Maybe it's super secret spy Tom Cruise Mission Impossible shit. Who knows? We're doing important stuff. We're talking about cool shit, and then we finish our coffees without saying a word. We get up, we go our own ways. We hit the delete button, and now our profiles for that interaction are gone. No logs, nothing was stored, no data was captured, no metadata. We've just had a conversation, just like spies would have done in the 20s and 30s, you know, where you meet, except then it would have been a little bit more technically awkward because, you know, they don't have Android and iOS. But this, now that's an extreme case, but imagine missionaries and political dissidents having a very, very similar interaction where governments can't eavesdrop. There are people today who use DemonSoft, the app that I created a few years back, to communicate about government fraud and corruption. And they rely on the encryption to make sure that it's not hackable, so they won't be put to death. There are people in third world countries that will die if they are caught reporting government corruption. So death, it's not just a matter of, well, I don't have anything to hide. Well, okay, we all have something to hide, and we all know we have something to hide because we all have secrets that would hurt us if they would be released. Intimate secrets with, with our girlfriends or husbands or boyfriends or whatever, just things we don't want people to know. Not necessarily illegal things, but things that are harmful if they're out in the world, like, the fappening. The fappening released all these pictures of these individuals that their privacy was violated. Now, okay, they've taken these pictures for their own
and for context, this is when celebrities had their iTunes and their Apple IDs hacked and their iCloud was hacked. Right. So someone stole basically all the nude photos of celebrities and released them online.
Yeah, and so you really have kind of two or three camps. One camp is saying, they're very attractive people. I like their nude photos. Okay, that's a bit base, but there's a large camp that okay, fine, whatever. But there's another camp that's like that's an utter privacy violation. Wow, how could iCloud be hacked? Well, it's a centralized framework. Of course they're hackable. And then there's the other world that says, it's not a failure in Apple. It's not a failure in the celebrities because, well, yeah, you could blame the celebrities for wanting to take intimate photos and sharing them with their partner, but that's part of an intimate relationship sometimes. There's nothing wrong with capturing that moment, especially in that intimacy. and that intimate relationship. But this other camp's thinking it's not a failure of the celebrities. It's not a failure of Apple. It's a failure of the architecture. Because why were those there? Why were those nude photos on Steve Jobs' servers? Why? I mean, Steve Jobs, why do you need my dick pics? Why? Why did you want my dick pics? It doesn't make any sense. Or Tim Cook's, do you really need additional 10 million dick pics? I don't think you do. You shouldn't. Why? So it's a failure of the architecture. It's not a failure of any of the parties involved. And when you look at it from that angle, you realize this thing could have been prevented, but not with the current model, not with companies who make money by collecting all this data. So we can't blame Apple for wanting to be profitable, for wanting to make money off of being a cloud provider. We can't blame the celebrities for wanting to capture intimate moments with their loved ones. We can't even blame the hackers for wanting to circumvent a system as a challenge. I mean, if it's out there, it's going to be hackable. So what we can blame is we can blame the architecture. We can blame the fact that we've been lied, that we need this convenience. I don't find it personally very convenient when my nude photos get stolen. I don't know about you. I don't find that overly convenient in my life. If I wanted to make my nude photos available, I could post them online myself. But to me, that's not
self-censor. I mean, I just don't take those photos. Like, I mean, even in my relationship with my girlfriend, like, we don't even have text conversations. We've had to make a rule in our relationship that we can only text about light things, because there's even so much that happens in communication and relationships that gets lost when you're texting and having full-on conversations with people. That, it's just pick up the phone and call me. Like, that's the answer. Because there's so many little nuances of, do we really want this logged on our phones? Do we really want leave your phone on your desk and, your friends over or your parents are over and seeing all of your chat history with your, significant other? Do we really want all of that recorded? And the answer is no, we don't. So we just don't use our technology to the fullest potential or capacity, because we're afraid of what would happen if we did, because we know that data is going somewhere else.
Yeah.
We might be unusual in the fact that we understand this because we both grew up in the Bay Area and we both grew up around the tech industry. And, obviously I've got a background in engineering and working on software, and I know how all of this stuff works. But for the average person, a lot of people don't realize that everything you do on your phone is being recorded.
Yeah.
Period.
Well, you brought up a really good point. Like, it's an invasion of privacy to have the current centralized architecture. Like, you and your girlfriend don't feel comfortable, extending intimate conversation over your phones, because for very good reason, it's being logged like 100 times. But imagine the paradigm shift in the next few years when we have privacy-focused solutions that enable that with full confidence. Imagine I didn't even think of that, but the social change, the social evolution that can occur if we truly have privacy guaranteed apps that guarantee no logging and no ability for others. You might very well take sexting to a whole new level. Maybe I've created the next great sexting app and didn't even realize. I obviously I'm joking a little bit in this whole podcast, but the reality is you are now fearful having more intimate conversations with girlfriend. That's wrong. It is wrong that the technology has betrayed you and the companies have betrayed you to the point where you have to feel cautious having conversations with the person you most care about in life. That is wrong. That's a failure of technology, and that's a failure of everything that we're trying to accomplish with the technology and the evolution and modern day computing. To me, that's going backwards. We might as well be back in the Stone Age, and rather than using these computers in our pocket that we have today. If we can't guarantee basic human rights, which I believe privacy is one of them, by simply sending a text message saying, I love you, or saying, God loves you, or Jesus loves you, or Muhammad loves you, or whatever. If we can't even get that guaranteed, then we haven't evolved, and technology hasn't taken us any more forward than what we had with telephones, or even with paper airplanes or carrier pigeons.
No, it's disconnected us. I mean, one of the largest one of the largest articles I've written that went viral, it was about echo chambers. It was about how these centralized systems put us into echo chambers and prevent us from actually truly networking with each other. Because when you're stuck in a room where some machine or some algorithm decided, well, I'm only going to show you things that I know you like, they prevent you from being able to meet and challenge your ideas about things that you possibly don't like, or things that make you uncomfortable. Because Facebook's not going to show you something in your newsfeed that's going to make you cringe and go, wow, like that's horrible, like, and close the app, because that's bad for Facebook. So they only show you fluffy, cute animal pictures and, you know, that vacation photo of your friend from a month ago, even though they're no longer on vacation. They show you all this stuff instead to give you those dopamine hits, to keep you using the app. But at the same time, they're actually preventing you from meeting new people. They're preventing you from interacting with others. They're actually putting and isolating everyone in the human population who uses these applications. They're being isolated, and they're being prevented from being able to manage and accept and be open to new relationships and meeting new people, which is the complete and total opposite of what social networking was supposed to be. Social networking, even back when I was younger, just in an IRC chat room, you could just pop into a chat room, not know anybody there, and make a friend. And it was anonymous, and you had no idea who anyone else was. You didn't know where they were. You didn't have photos. You didn't have profiles. You could just jump into an IRC room, start talking to people, and figure out who you want to talk to based on the conversation you're having, instead of all the metadata. So now that's gone. That's dead. That doesn't really happen anymore, because all of these systems that we're a part of, all of these systems that we've given our data to, they've put us into echo chambers. They've isolated. They've said, oh, these are your friends now. You have to keep them for the rest of your life. You can't meet any new people. And that is just not how humanity works. And it convinces people, it straight up convinces people, oh, I'm popular. I have a following. I'm liked because I've got 500 friends on Facebook. And it creates this false dichotomy where they're not really living in reality, because their social network is not full. Their life, there's other people, there's other experiences, there's other things that could be happening to them aside from sitting there on their phone staring at an app.
Yeah, I find Yelp and Rotten Tomato to be possibly the two worst websites ever created. And I tell people all the time, if you're using Rotten Tomato, then you don't even value your own individuality, and you have no confidence in your own opinions, because and people may hear that and be like, oh my God, why are you saying that? Same thing with Yelp. The human experiment is about exploration, and is about individuality, and is about expressing that individuality. But in today's modern culture, what you're alluding to is totally true, or what you're stating outright, not even alluding to, what you're stating outright is totally true. People have lost every aspect of asserting their individuality, that they're now trying to find individuality via group think and group experiences. One perfect example, and thank God guys aren't doing it anymore, or at least most guys, but like 10, 15 years ago, guys wanted to express their uniqueness and individuality by getting a barbed wire tattoo around one of their biceps. Well, first of all, that's the stupidest idea I've ever heard. And I've heard a lot of stupid ideas, but why would you, if you had barbed wires on your arm, wouldn't that hurt? How's that manly? How's that? So you're self-hurting. This is not, how's that make you strong? How are you going to use the barbed wire? Are you going to rip it off your arm and throw it? How's that manly? Now you're throwing barbed wire at somebody who doesn't have it. That's an unfair fight. This is not manly or machismo at all. So I never understood.
It's not even artistic either.
No, it's not. It's and most of the
squiggly line.
Most of them didn't even look like barbed wire because they were done so shitty. But if everybody wants to express their individuality by doing what is socially acceptable, what groupthink views as socially acceptable, then you're not expressing your individuality. You're expressing the fact that you belong to a collective. Mm-hmm. And if that's the case, we need to call it for what it is. You are part of a collective. If modern day individuality is acceptance, then we've lost everything that we set out to accomplish by being individuals. And that's fine. I love Star Trek and I love the Borg, but let's not pretend to be individuals and unique and snowflakes and different. Let's call it out and say, we're just a cog in a machine. And I look just like all the other cogs in the machine, gray, functional, and covered in grease. and let's call it for what it is. Let's express our individuality by following our heart and our minds. Let's not go to Yelp, not go to Rotten Tomato. Maybe the restaurant that you go to is terrible, but maybe it's amazing, because just maybe your preference might be slightly askew enough to make that experience wonderful for you. And maybe it's horrendous for the 99%, but who cares? Because you're not eating for them. You're eating for you. And the same thing with movies. I've loved certain movies that everybody, that has horrible ratings that people hate. But I love them for ways that makes me unique. And they feed me in a certain way that I don't expect them to feed anybody else.
Sometimes I watch horrible movies because they have low ratings, and I'm like, wow, this has a 3% like on Rotten Tomatoes. Like, there must be something amazing about this movie to get such a low rating, because they must have. And sometimes it is horrible storytelling or bad CGI or whatever it is. But like, I find it just as entertaining to watch something, to watch a train wreck. There's something about watching a train wreck that, obviously you don't want, anyone to get hurt. But at the same time, there's something entertaining about watching a train wreck. And that's what some of those movies are. So yeah, sometimes when I see a bad rating, I'm like, okay, is this bad because it's a train wreck? Or is it bad because it's so intellectual that it isolated the audience and 97% of people didn't understand it, so they gave it a bad rating?
Right. There was a couple movies that one's just on Netflix now, but a couple of movies. One is Oblivion with Tom Cruise, which is the sci-fi movie where the aliens are trying to destroy the world. Okay, I love that movie. I must have seen that 3-4 times. I love it. Not because it's going to win any awards. I love it because the feeling you get with that dystopian future of what we've done to ourselves, and the sets and everything there's the dichotomy between dirty, almost caveman-like existence for the humans that are still alive, and everything is perfect, pristine, white, clean. Up in the skies. So you've got, in a lot of ways, to me, it represented this continuing divide between the poor and the rich in our culture. I was able to see parallels to how the 0.1% live. Some of these people I've met, and they live in an existence that is surreal. They can't even understand what it's like to live our lives.
I have no idea. No, I've met them too. I grew up in Marin County.
So and same goes for like Altered Carbon, which was a new show on Netflix, which shows literally people become so wealthy, they're so far up in the clouds, they don't even, they consider everybody else ants. And to me, that was poetic and scary, and it hit a little too close to home. And that was an amazing experience. And another movie, The Signal, which was with the guy who plays Morpheus, Lawrence Fishburne, I think is it. Signal, if you haven't seen it on Netflix, it's a slow movie. It's slow, but the end of it is just so provocative and so, everything's so desolate and sad and just depressing. But once again, it hit close. I don't know. I liked it. I liked it for bizarre ways that I can't even begin to express. I don't know what ratings it got on Rotten Tomatoes.
these movies, all the movies you're describing, I've seen most of them as well, and they all capture an emotional feeling that is uneasy. It's it's not, as you said, that some of them are depressing, some of them are, you feel that sorrow, you feel that divide between the different classes. And I think the intention of the directors and the writers and the people who worked on these films, that was their point. That's what they were trying to get across. And that doesn't make people feel good, because they want to go to the movies. They want to see a Marvel movie. They want to see the superhero win. They don't want to go to the movies necessarily and feel like, wow, that was depressing as hell. Like, I really am a part of a lower social class. Like, you know what I mean? Like that you're going to walk out of that theater going, like, rethinking your life, instead of like, wow, that was so great. Like, did you see what Superman just did? Like, that was a cool scene. Totally different dichotomy there. So anyways, I've let this interview run very long. Usually I cut them off by now, but we've been able to touch on a lot of different topics here. So I'm going to ask you for your final thoughts, because we should probably wrap up.
Yeah, no problem. And by the way, Marvel movies are total shit. Sorry. I'm sure they're high on Rotten Tomatoes, but Ant-Man and Wasp, I like Michael Douglas, but oh my God, I can't
bother with that.
Well, I was dragged with my 8-year-old nephews and doing my duty as an uncle, but I'm done with Marvel and Disney, I think, at least until I get dragged to the next Marvel movie with my 8-year-old nephews. All right.
Yeah.
So final thoughts are, privacy is a right, and it's something it's the essence of who we are. Privacy is about the things that are close and near and dear to us, that if they were to be released in the world, so if our privacy were to be violated, it would only hurt us and our loved ones. So the secrets that privacy is meant to protect are the things that define us as individuals and are the core of our being. And if they were to be released and violated, it would violate us at our most core essence. And so it's important that we protect those. And if we're waiting for Superman to fly in with the Facebook logo on his chest or the Dropbox logo on his chest, if he does show up, he's not going to be there for us. He's going to be there for making money, for the corporate structure, for other reasons. And so if we're fine with being dragged along and abused for what represents us in the form of metadata, and we're fine being treated as lower than a number by these companies, then by all means, continue using Facebook Messenger, continue using Dropbox. But I believe individuality and I believe privacy are more important than the financial reports of companies and the financial earnings that companies report quarterly. I believe we are more important and more powerful than that. But the only way to change the status quo is to step up, have the right intentions, have the right morality behind it, be properly funded by like-minded people who share the same passion as my team does, and you do, and I do, and build out great technology. The only way to defeat the machine of centralization is to build a better machine. And to tie in all of our discussion about game programming and movies and sci-fi, if there's one thing we learned, if you want to defeat a monster like Godzilla or a scary mech that is devastating and terrifying the earth, you have to do what? You have to build a bigger mech. And that's the way we accomplish this. We build a better machine. And it's all just ones and zeros at the end of the day. So it's not impossible. In fact, it's happening right now. So my name is Eric Anderson. I'm known by the name Eijah in the hackerspace, and I'm the founder and CEO of Promether. You can find out more information about us at promether.com, promether.com. If you guys want to get in contact with me, you can tweet at me. It's @nsurveillance, or you can send us an email, contact@promether.com, or come hang out with me in the next few days at DEF CON. I'll be in Las Vegas for the next 4 or 5 days. So Trent, thank you so much. You probably want to say some closing. You probably want to say, see, I am cutting Trent off right now. I am like literally, I'm a terrible wingman. So I'm a terrible podcast wingman.
End the show for me. Go ahead.
No, you had this beautiful soliloquy that you were gonna we were all gonna be amazed. So without further ado, here is Trent's amazing ending. That's gonna make you all realize how much a better speaker he is than I am.
At this point, I think that was a beautiful ending. So I think we're just gonna wrap it up there. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you so much, guys. It's been a pleasure. Thanks, Trent.